Okay, time for the next installment of chapter 2. Remember that Peter and his family were getting ready for the Yarbys to come over. Remember, that was Peter's dad's boss. They're coming over to visit. And Fudge has been causing problems by eating all the flowers. That's where we left off. Okay, here we go. Next installment in chapter 2. My mother was all dressed up by the time my father got home with the Yarbys. You'd have never guessed that Mom spent most of the day in the kitchen. You'd also never have guessed that Fudge ate 2 flowers. He was feeling fine. He smelled nice, like a baby powder. Then Mrs. Yarby picked him up right away. I knew she would. She looked like a grandma, that type that always makes a big deal out of Fudge. She walked into the living room cuddling him, and then she sat down on the sofa and bounced Fudge around on her lap. "Isn't he the cutest little boy?" Mrs. Yarby said. "I just love babies." And she gave him a big kiss on the top of his head. I kept waiting for somebody to tell her that Fudge was no baby, but no one did. My father carried Mr. Yarby's suitcases into Fudge's room. When he came back, he introduced me to our company. "This is our older son, Peter," he said to the Yarbys. "Yeah, I'm 9, and I'm in 4th grade," I told him. "How do you do, Peter?" Mr. Yarby said. Mrs. Yarby just gave me a nod. She was still busy with Fudge. "I have a surprise for this dear little boy," she said. "It's in my suitcase. Should I go get it?" Yeah, Fudge shouted. "Go get, go, get." Mrs. Yarby laughed as if it was the best joke that she'd ever heard. "I'll be right back," she told Fudge. She put him down and ran off to find her suitcase. She came back carrying a present tied up with red ribbon. "Oh," Fudge cried, opening his eyes wide. "Goody, goody!" He clapped his hands. Mrs. Yarby helped him unwrap his surprise. It was a wind-up train that made a lot of noise. Every time it bumped into something, it turned around and went the other way. Fudge liked it a lot. He likes anything that's noisy. "It's a nice train," I said. Mrs. Yarby turned to me. "Oh, and I have something for you, too, Peter," I reminded her. "My name is Peter." "Yes, well, I'll go get it." Mrs. Yarby left the room again. She came back She came back this time with a flat package. It was wrapped up too, red ribbon and all. She handed it to me. Fudge stopped playing with his train long enough to come over and see what I got. I took off the paper very carefully in case my mother wanted to save it, and also to show Mrs. Yarby that I'm a lot more careful about things than my brother. I'm not sure she noticed. My present turned out to be one of those big picture dictionaries, the kind I liked when I was about 4 years old. My old one's in Fudge's bookcase now. "I don't know much about big boys," Mrs. Yarby said, "so the lady in the store said a nice book would be a good idea." Yeah, a nice book would have been a good idea, I thought. But a picture dictionary? Come on, that's for babies. I've got my own regular dictionary since I was 8. But I knew that I had to be polite, so I said, "Thank you very much. It's just what I've always wanted." "I'm so glad," Mrs. Yarby said. She let out a long sigh and sat back down on the sofa. My father offered the Yarbys a drink. Good idea, Mr. Yarby said. "What'll it be?" my father asked. "What'll it be?" Mr. Yarby repeated, laughing. "What do you think it'll be, Hatcher? It'll be Juicy-O. That's all we ever drink. Good for your health." Mr. Yarby pounded his chest. "Oh, of course," my father said, like he knew it all along. "Juicy-O for everyone," my father told my mother, and she went into the kitchen to get it. While my father and Mr. Yarby were discussing Juicy-O, Fudge disappeared. Just as my mother served everyone a glass of Mr. Yarby's favorite drink, he came back. He was carrying a book, my old, worn-out picture dictionary, the same one that the Yarbys just gave me. "See?" Fudge said, climbing onto Mrs. Yarby's lap. "See book?" I wanted to vanish. I think my mother and father did too. I can use another one," I explained. I mean, I really can. That old one's falling apart." I tried to laugh. "No, it's returnable," Mrs. Yarby said. It's silly to keep it if you already have one." She sounded insulted, like it was my fault that she brought me something I already had. "Mine," Fudge said, and he closed the book and held it tight against his chest. "Mine, mine, 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 mine." "Well, it's the thought that counts," my mother said. "It was nice of you to think of our boys." She turned to Fudge. Go put the book away now, Fudgy." "Isn't it Fudgy's bedtime?" my father hinted. "Oh, yeah, I think it is," my mother said, scooping him up. "Say goodnight, Fudgy." "Good night, Fudgy," my brother said, waving at us. Fudge was supposed to fall asleep before we all sat down to dinner, but just in case, my mother put a million little toys in his crib to keep him busy. I don't know who my mother thought she was fooling, because we all know that Fudge can climb out of his crib any old time he wants to. We'll stop there for today. We'll finish chapter 2 tomorrow.